Welcome to K.R Film's entertainment channel. In the year 10,000 BC, the tribe known as Yagahls are having trouble surviving because it's become very hard to find mammoths to hunt for food bone, and for every day their hunters wander further and further from the tribe to find food, and one night they return with a small girl named Devil. She had been holding on to a dead mother, and the hunters were impressed by her bright blue eyes which they never saw before. The tribe shaman known as the Old Mother channels the spirits to share a prophecy. Four-legged demons will come to their valley on the day of their last hunt. A mighty warrior will arise from this hut who will take Everlet as his wife, and together they'll lead the tribe into a new life with no more hunger. However, the tribe's chief doesn't believe the prophecy and wants to find an alternate way to feed his people instead of waiting for a hunter could take years. Hours before leaving, he gives his best friend Tik Tik the holy white spear and asks him to protect us and Lay. After the chief leaves, Lay begins being bothered by all the other boys for being the son of a coward that abandoned the tribe. Checked has to always start fights and reminds the kids not to speak like that about their former chief. Lay begins spending time on his own and Evelyn joins in because she understands how hard it is to be alone since the like a demons killed her people. Touched by her company, Lay promises he'll never let her be alone again. Years pass and Lay and Evelyn spend so much time together that they fall in love. When the time for the last hunt arrives, a young buck who tells adult Lay that the Old Mother is sure the day of the prophecy is common that everyone believes current will whenever let's hand. Their conversation is interrupted by a don't ever let who distracts be cool with food so she can go on a walk with Lay. Ever let as worried the current may be too good to beat and is later run away together, but Lay refuses to run like his father did and promises to win the hot at that moment. But who announces the mammoths have arrived. Tik Tik reminds the hunters that the one that kills a mammoth will claim the white spear and be the new chief before guiding them to the field. They slowly sneak up on the herd and Tik Tik is the first one to find the lead mammoth, so he starts yelling at it to scare it. The other hunters copy him, and when the mammoths begin running away, the hunters follow them. One particularly huge mammoth tries to run through a narrow passage and the tribe catches it in a net before Current throws his spirit in, but he misses. The mammoth shakes its body until it frees itself and continues to run away. The net stuck to its feet. The tactic tells the hunters to let go of a net because the beast too strong. Lee has hands stuck in the net and can't let go, thus the mammoth drags him away with it. Eventually the neck gets stuck on some rocks and the mammoth finishes freeing itself to then start charging. After delay, the boy dodges the attacks and frees his hand to toss a spear, but his shot only makes the mammoth angrier. Then Leah finds another spear, but this one is stuck on the rocks, so he tries to run back. The mammoth chases him and accidentally walks into the spear, which pierces its heart and causes it to fall dead on top of Leah. The tribe immediately comes to save him and congratulate him for killing a mammoth alone, which nobody has ever done before. The Old Mother hands in the white spear together with of Let's hand. The mammoth is taken back to be eaten in. The tribe throws a celebration, but Lay is overwhelmed with guilt because the death of the mammoth had been an accident. He asks Tactic for advice because lying is bad, but he doesn't want to lose Apple it, and Tik Tik reminds him it's not the way of the Jago to claim the white spear with ally. Later in the evening, Play tells Everlet that he's given the spear back to Tik Tik but that he still loves her and wants to be together with her. Sadly, Everlet sees Lay giving up the spear is giving up on her and leaves. The next morning, the tribe is suddenly attacked by the like good demons who turn out to be horse riders. They capture all the strong people to be used as slaves and kill anyone that dares challenge them, but who hides in a hut and has to watch how his mother is killed by one eye. Lay fell asleep outside the tribe to deal with his guilt and has woken up by the screaming, so he immediately comes to help. However, Tactic stops, and because they have no chance against them, the leader of the writers known as War Lord notices Evelyn beauty and decides to take her for himself. After the writers leave with a bunch of new slaves, the survivors try to take care of what's left of the tribe. Lay decides he wants to go after the writers, and Tactic and Current accept to go with him, but who wants to go to and is told to stay back because he's a kid. However, when the tree leaves, but who sneaks out and joins them anyway, explaining he has no family left. After walking for a few miles, they find a bunch of stones that indicates someone made a fire there and a piece of Evelyn necklace that confirms they're on the right track. As they move further, the group is hit by a snowstorm, and because the Old Mother is following their spirits, she feels the freezing cold as well. The hunters manage to survive the snowstorm, but they wake up to discover the snow destroyed all the tracks left by the horse riders. They wander for many days and nights and they start to wonder if they're getting lost. Meanwhile, One Eye discovered several it has been dropping parts of her necklace, and when she refuses to hand it over, Warlord whips her hands to break her determination. Sometime later, the hunters passed by that area and find the necklace covered with blood on the ground. Lay worries about of Let's life, but who tells him maybe she only lost it At that moment they notice how birds are flying away from the forest in fear, meeting the writers have gone that way. The forest is full of dangerous creatures and a mysterious animal takes away one of the writers. Warlord whips everyone to make the move faster. Moments later Play finds part of the missing rider's armor on the ground, allowing him to follow a trail to the writer's cap. Play wants to attack now, but Tick Tick points out it's a terrible idea because the writers are keeping watch and they'll be caught, so they must be patient. The next morning Everlet is awakened by One Eye who tries to take advantage of her. Lay immediately comes to knock him out and reunites with Level It, but they are interrupted when the horses suddenly began to panic because of something they saw in the woods. Lay takes several it with him, and as the writers get ready to leave, War Lord notices his favorite girl is gone. Lay takes advantage of the distraction provided by the horses and together with Everlet they begin freeing some other people, but One Eye sees them and begins chasing them. As they run they meet up with Tick Tick and the others, and unfortunately One Eye manages to capture Current. The chase is suddenly interrupted by the attack of terror birds while the writers fight the birds, but who climbs a 2-3 and Tactic tries to defend himself only to get wounded. The group tries to hide among the trees and Play promises Everlet he'll be back soon before he rushes out to distract the birds away from the cool. A new chase begins through the forest and Lay climbs on Iraq to reach a bird above its head and take it out. Then he runs towards the bamboo area where he uses a bamboo stick as a spear to kill the other bird while Lay is busy. With this the writers take the chance to capture Baku, and invalid. Lay returns and finds Tactic bleeding but still alive. He immediately makes a pallet to carry Tactic as he follows the riders through the savannah, only stopping to eat and sleep. The first night Lay makes a fire and cauterizes Tactic's wound while he apologizes for not having listened. Then Lay goes hunting for food, and because he's running in the dark, he accidentally falls into a pit trap, falling unconscious. Back in the tribe, Old Mother wakes up with visions of something terrible happening soon. That night it begins to rain heavily in the pit, fills with water. The rain wakes Lay up and he notices a saber-toothed tiger in the pit with him. At first Lay thinks of killing it, but then he feels sorry for it and decides to free it as he asked not to eat him. The tiger, a pro such, later smell him yet leaves without attacking. This allows Old Mother to fall asleep again without worries. Lay climbs out of the pit and reunites with Tick Tick, who is already feeling better. He's heard an attack beyond the hills and can see the smoke in the distance, so the duo decides to investigate. They arrive at a small village that also was attacked by the writers. As soon as they find food they begin to desperately only to suddenly be surrounded by the armed tribe that lives here. It seems the duo was about to get killed, but at that moment the tiger shows up, causing the tribe to step back. The tiger approaches Lay and gives him a groan of approval before roaring at the locals for daring to threaten him. After the tiger leaves, the locals put down their weapons and invite Lay and Tactic to eat. Leader Nakodu can speak their language and explains he learned it from a man that looked like Lay. Meeting his father passed through this area before. Lay wants to know where to find his dad, but unfortunately he was taken by the writers too and nobody has ever escaped from them. Then Nakodu shows them some paintings that talk of a prophecy about a man that can talk to the tiger and will free their people, obviously referring to Lay, not who do sense words to the other two. Arrives, but Lay doesn't feel like he can lead to make him feel better. Tactic explains that his father didn't abandon him, he left to find a better life for the tribe, so it's up Lay to follow not his ideals. The next morning the messenger comes back informing them the other tribes were attacked by the writers as well. Tactic wants to go after them and Nakodu asked his men to get ready to leave as everyone says goodbye to their families. Play notices Nakodu is alone and Nakadu explains the writers killed his wife and stole his son tutor. Speaking of Tudu, he meets Baku while they're being dragged around by the writers and they quickly become friends. When the group stops to rest, Wanna try to make the coup drink some water, but because responds by attacking him, One Eye immediately jumps on him to kill him, so Evelyn asked the warlord to stop it. The warlord can't say no to her and hits One Eye to make him stop, which angers One Eye. It almost makes him dry sort. However, he knows he can't hurt the leader right now and promises revenge later. Back to Lay, he leaves the village with the others and a shock to see many other tribes already waiting for them just because they've heard the great leader has arrived. The group starts an arduous walk without stopping, sleep or rest, and each day that passes brings more tribes to join them. Eventually they make it to the river and discover the writers are leaving on boats full of cages with the slaves. Lay can't help feeling of Let's name, and as soon as she hears him, Let shows the others that Lay will come to save them. The kids are excited to see such a huge group of warriors, but the writers immediately make them shut up since they can't for hello actual boats. The tribe stop to discuss their options. The story says that the river moves like a snake through the sand and the slaves are taken to the I have a snake which rests under the sun that doesn't move onto the moon. The only way without boats is through the desert, but nobody can walk that far. Lay refuses to give up and guides the tribes to the desert anyway, promising he'll find the eye of the snake. The tribes For several days, feeling like they're getting lost. Some days later, Lei looks at the sky and realizes that the eye of the snake refers to the North Star, so they need to travel at night to use it as a guide. Meanwhile, the old mother has stopped talking to anyone and just sitting on her spot waiting for the right moment to finish her duty. Sometime later, the tribes finally find the writer's destination, a place known as the Mouth. One of the gods. The slaves already arrived a few days ago and have been put to work to build a pyramid for an advanced civilization. These men have also slave mammoths, treating them with a lack of disrespect that angers. Be cool and current. Whenever a horn can be heard, everyone must fall to their knees to receive the leader known as the Almighty. And as priests today, the Almighty isn't pleased with how slow everyone is working, so he orders the priest to sacrifice a slave as punishment. One of Karan's friends is then thrown off the building, instantly dying. Meanwhile, Lee begins losing hope because even with all tribes together, they don't have enough people to attack. However, Tik Tik points out that if the slaves join them, there'll be much more. When night falls, Lee and Naka do sneak into the caged building to check on the slaves, while Nock reunites with his son. Play asks, but who about evil? It only to learn the women are in a different building. Then Lei apologizes to Current for getting caught, but Current is a believer in the prophecy and swears to follow. Later, yet a slave from another tribe protests Lei's presence here because of get everyone in trouble, and he doesn't care how many spears he has, since weapons can't kill a god. Not Hoodoo tells him that Lei his power is that allow him to speak to the tigers, and the slaves immediately introduce him to a blind man that they keep hidden underground. This blind man used to be serving a god that ran away and knows that with the god fears the most is the mark of the hunter, which represents the brightest star of the heavens. If Lei doesn't have the mark, he can't kill the Almighty. At that moment, they hear the guards approaching, so Delay and Nako do need to leave. First, though, Lei asked the blind man about his bracelet, which looks familiar. It turns out his father had been the one to save the blind man's life, but sadly he's now dead. Then Nakodo and Lei run back to their army only to discover a few guards have followed them. The tribesmen get ready to fight, but Tik Tik shows up first and fights them alone. He takes all of them down with masterful skill, but one the guards only pretends to be dead and stabs Tik Tik. When he turns around, Lei rushes to Tik Tik's side, telling him he needs him because the slaves won't fight with them since they have their own prophecy. Tik Tik reminds him prophecies of many faces. Then he hands Lei the white spear before dying. In the meantime, Everlet is taken to Warlord's chamber so he can take advantage of her tonight. Everlet carefully steals his sword, but before she can defend herself, they're interrupted by the priests and the guards, who immediately arrest Warlord for stealing a slave from the Almighty. It turns out One Eye is titled on Warlord as his revenge. Then the priests take the sword from Everlet's hand and discover the scars form the mark at the hunter. The priests inform this to the Almighty, who gets furious at the news. Back to Lei, he buries tactic while Lockadu reminds him his father would have wanted him to be a good leader. Lei finally accepts the white spear and gives the tribes a great speech about working together to kill giants like they do to hide mammoths. In the morning, they get ready with a plan. After burying their spears in the sand, they sneak into the camp pretending to be slaves, and Lei tells Baku he shall be 100 today. He also begins passing around a message of an income fight. Meanwhile, Level that has taken to the Almighty together with Warlord, who was whipped for his betrayal. The priest also informs Almighty that a great army of spear warriors is nearby, meaning they need to get ready. Back to the slaves. Play and Current find the mammoth leader, so they send McLuhan and to do their part. The kids free the mammoth from their bindings, and once they're done, Blade gives the signal to start the fight. As all the spears began attacking the masters, Late tries to scare the mammoth leader to no avail. At that moment, the guards show up and Current fights them to bide Lei, sometime sacrificing himself, or as people furious at losing a friend. Play finally yells at the mammoth loudly enough to scare, and the mammoths begin running down, crushing all the guards. The slaves noticed this and finally are inspired to rebel as well. So soon tribesmen are fighting their oppressors all over the place. When Almighty hears what's going on, he orders the priest to kill Levelet in front of everyone to make them lose hope. As soon as Lei says Everlet, he makes the warrior stop fighting, and the slaves can't help falling to their knees when they hear the horn. Almighty shows up and makes a threat through his priest. If Late isn't turned back, he'll kill Level. Let Lei only accepts if he's allowed to take his people with him, and the Almighty let him have the people of his tribe but not the others because they belong to God. Refusing to accept such terms, Late throws his white spear and quickly kills Almighty as he informs everyone that he wasn't a god, he was just human. Inspired by this revelation, all the slaves join the fight again, but Who sees One Eye and tries to kill him to get revenge on his mother, but he fails a shot and One Eye captures. To do this proves to be a mistake because Nakodo immediately kills One Eye to save his son, while the slaves enter the main building to bring down the priests and burn their boats. Warlord frees Evelyn and takes her away on his horse. Lei begins running after them, and whenever that season, she steals an arrow to stab Warlord, making them both fall off. Ever let and Lay run toward each other, but before they can reunite, Warlord shoots his bow and hits several. This is felt by the old mother, who immediately begins bleeding. A furious Lay runs to Warlord and kills him with a white spear. People around him begin celebrating their victory, but Lay only has sad eyes from Evelyn, who dies in his arms. Devastated, Lay runs to the mammoth to ask for Immer's shuffle and of things for himself, but at that moment the old mother gives her last breath as she dies. Everlet comes back to life. Lay run to the love of his life, and the tribesmen can celebrate for real this time. Sometime later the tribes return to their corresponding villages, not who do give Lay some seeds his father had collected, which should help fetus people. Both tribes say goodbye forever, since that's the last time they see each other. A few days later, Lay and the rescued tribesmen return to their tribe and plant the seeds, which began growing pretty quickly with Lay as the new leader and enough food to save the village. Old mother's prophecy has finally been fulfilled. Thank you for watching.